It's Claire from Handmade at Hudson's, and you may wonder why I have a number of colours in front of me, and that's because today's video is how I use ink pads. So I am also going to be using the Dragonfly Garden stamp set, the Blossoms in Bloom stamp set, and the Birch Backgrounds stamp set. So without further ado, oh yeah, and sorry, I still have my lovely glove on. I tried to film this earlier without my glove on and it looks awful and it hurt. So without further ado, let's go into way one that I use ink pads. Let's move these out of the way. So obviously way one is the most basic, and it is simply stamping with your stamps. So I have got some basic grey, I have got my dragonfly, and I'm just going to use that to ink up and to create a pattern on my card. And then you can also obviously use the stamps on scrap paper to create images that you can punch out. I think I'm going to do another one of these on this side. So really simple. So one is using cling stamps. Let's take all of these out of the way. Two is background stamps. So I have got a background stamp in here, and this is the birch stamp, and I have stuck a piece of card in, and I'm going to take my grey granite, which you may see is already on the stamp, and I'm just going to ink this up. Now I found background stamps are one of the easiest ways of inking up, I find the big ink pads one of the easiest ways of inking up big background stamps, and this is my Stamparatus, or aka Dino, and I'm just going to press that down. And I've missed a bit, so I'm just going to press it down again, and because my paper and my stamp haven't moved, should be a complete image. So I can cut that down and make that into a card front, and that's quite cool. So yeah, that's way number two, using background stamps. But way number three is using photopolymer stamps. So I have got the happy birthday from Bloom stamp set, and again you can use it on your cards, your tags, or just some scrap paper to create a sentiment, and that is probably one of the easiest things to do. Okay, next way I use my ink pads is to create my own embossing colour. So all you will need is a stamp, your Versamark, your some clear embossing powder, which I have here, and embossing buddy and your heat gun. So all you would do is take your Versamark, ink up your stamp, and then I have got a die cut here, and I'm simply going to cover that in the anti-static powder. I'm going to take my ink and ink that up. Hopefully this will be straight. And then I'm just going to add some embossing powder. I'm going to close this up. And then I'm going to add some embossing powder. Probably a bit too much there, and I'm just going to pour this back into the pot. And then if you can see here, it's got powder on, and I'm just going to give it a quick tap to get rid of any excess, and I'm going to pour this back in here and then put the lid back on. Then I'm going to heat this up, and I shall be back in a second. And then there you have a sentiment that is actually rigid and sparkly. And so that is creating your own coloured embossing powder. The next way to use your ink pads is to ink up items other than stamps. So I have got my block there. I've got my balmy blue ink. I'm going to add some ink to my block, and then I am just simply going to, and let's make sure it's the right way, yep, add this to the centre here, and then there is quite an interesting background for my card. And then of course, as well as doing it that way, you can also add water. So it's probably best on this one to do it either on watercolour paper or on a background you can cut down. So I have got a giant piece of paper here, and what I'm going to do is to add ink to my block, and then I am going to take a stamping spritzer or any sort of water sprayer. I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to plop this down and then go and slide it up. So there I have an interesting background. So you can leave that to dry, or you can dry it off with your heat tool, and then you can stamp onto this and create some quite interesting looking cards. And of course, leads me into my next one. My next way is to use an ink pad to ink up a jelly press. So I have got a round gel press here, and I am going to just simply stamp down onto my card. And it's a bit like using a block, apart from obviously it's different shapes. So I have got a circle, a triangle and a square. I can use a block to get a square, but it's harder to get a circle and a triangle. And then you would stamp on to that. So that's my next example. So you can use ink pads to create a stamp from most things. So whether it's from the lid of your Stampin' Up pens that will create circles, to the end of a pencil. Maybe I'm making googly eyes. To a finger dauber. And big ink pads do make it easier to get and add ink. So they can create stamps out of virtually anything. So I am using my ink pad to add colour, and in this example I am using my ink pad as a colour source and colouring with the Wink Stella pen, which creates an interesting sparkle to whatever you are colouring. And with this you just want to make sure that it doesn't get too wet, so that it doesn't show through the card as much as other ways. And my next way uses ink pads to add colour as well. So this uses an ink pad to add colour as well. Apart from this time we are going to add grey to our dragonfly, and all I am doing is adding colour by using my blending pen, and I am inking up my blending pen and then colouring in my dragonfly. Now that's a good way of adding colour if you don't have the corresponding Stampin' Right marker for your ink pad. So my next way is to add colour as well, and I shall show you that in a second. So here I have taken the stamp out of our jelly plate that we did, and I am simply going to add colour using a watercolour brush. Now my watercolour brush is quite dry because you don't want it too wet, because we're colouring on to non-watercolour card. So if I open my card up, you'll see that as long as it isn't too wet, you won't come through the card. So I'm just adding colour to the flowers. Use my watercolour brush. And then of course you can add different colours, so whether it's white or just jade. So I'm just going to colour that off, and that should be cleaner. And then I'm going to bring in my just jade and colour in the flowers. So that is colouring with a watercolour brush. So this is pretty similar to the last way, and that is to use them to watercolour. Apart from this time I have actually got some watercolour paper even. I am using a watercolour brush to add colour to here. So with this one, I might actually add the ink to a block. Actually, no, it doesn't need to go in too badly. And then you could keep on playing and adding colour to the background. And then you would stamp on that and create an image which you could colour in. Let's take these out of the way. So I hope that video was helpful to show you the ways that I use the main ways that I use my large ink pads. I will show you a few more ways in another video, and we'll give you more in-depth ways over the next few weeks. So this was the first card I made. So this is just simply stamped in basic grey and then coloured in with Winker Stella and Misty Moonlight, and then I stamped in Misty Moonlight as well. And then my second card uses the pencil as a stamp, and it's stamped in basic grey, just jade and Misty Moonlight, and I think that's quite a cute, easy card to make. Then my next card uses the birch background that I've created and Happy Birthday from the Blossom and Bloom, and I've created that into an easel card, and I have used a piece of thick Whisper White for the bottom dragonfly to hold the dragonflies in place, but I think that looks quite pretty, and that's on a Magnetic Madness card base. And the cards that I created using the blocks, so that is the original one where I have just used the dry block, and then I have stamped on the butterfly, dragonfly, and then I have coloured that in Misty Moonlight and the Winker Stella, so the dragonfly's wings sparkle, and then just added thank you for your kindness underneath. And the wet block I have turned into a thank you for your kindness card, and I've stamped in VersaFine ink because that works quite well on water card, and I think that looks quite pretty. And then I turned my image that was created on a jelly press into a simple card, and I have used just jade, Magnetic Madness and Craft White to colour in the card, and then just added it to a balmy blue note card. And then for the watercolouring, this is what I have created for my watercolour card. So this is watered down shaded spruce. We've got balmy blue in the background, and then I have used some Magneto Madness for the flowers. There's some there's some gorgeous grape on the dragonflies, and there's some Just Jade for the leaves. And then my last card has a actually that's not my last card. This is a card that has watercoloured flowers on in Magneto Magnus and Just Jade, and then this here I have actually heat embossed on to vellum. So I have created my own Just Jade embossing colour, and then I have coloured on the back in the Misty Moonlight alcohol marker. And then my last card uses the sentiment that we created earlier. So may good things grow all year round. And if you look, this is actually embossed, and then I have just added a bit of colour with the daisies from the stamp. So all these pictures for these cards will be on my blog. I hope you have found this video useful, and it will show you some easy ways to use your ink pads. As I said, there'll be some more in-depth videos over the next few weeks. If you've got any questions, please let me know. My email is clara@handmade@hudsons.co.uk. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe. There's a button in below. You can find all the details on my blog, which is linked in below, handmade@hudsons.co.uk. Thank you very much for pressing play on the video, and I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.